दकारी पलपन विसरे नहीं जो विसारी जुगल चरण सोल चिन्ह जेह नजर समीपे रहो हमारी एह। बोलो श्री हरि कृष्ण महाराज नी जय, घनश्याम महाराज नी जय। Supreme Personality, Lord Swaminarayan, the path maker to our liberation, Pujapad Guruji, and all of you devotees who are viewing this, my humble Jai Swaminarayan. Last week, we talked about the 5 PanchVartam, or the 5 moral codes of conducts, just briefly. And we talked about 2 of them in depth, theft and meat specifically. Today, we want to finish the other 3 and see why Shashtriji Maharaj has restrained and told his devotees not to do any of these acts, such as alcohol, adultery, or even eat insecure food. We'll learn in depth the other 3 today. Now, continuing on today, we'll talk about the moral codes of these 3. But more than that, we'll talk about why Shashtriji Maharaj has implemented these moral codes. That's very important because nowadays in the world, we see some of these, such as eating meat or drinking alcohol or even eating insecure food, as such daily habits that the regular human does. But to refrain from all this, to stay away from all this, why? Why should one do it? We'll learn more on that today. So continuing on, the 3rd moral code is alcoholism, or to renounce all intoxicants. Let's take a look at the word intoxicant. Let's see what it means really specifically. Intoxicants: alcoholic drinks which are intoxicating or addictive, prepared from various substances through various procedures. These are called intoxicants. Now, in the Shikshapatri, Shashtriji Maharaj has said specifically in verse number 15 that one shall never drink alcoholic drinks even if it has been offered to a deity. Meaning one should never consume at any time, even if it's offered to a deity and then drink. Some people think and mistake that if we offer something to a deity or Bhagwan, that it's sanctified, it's purified, and it's drinkable. But it doesn't work like that, because it still has the same effects on your mind as if you didn't offer it to a deity. That's why Bhagwan had to mention that fact at the end. But let's take a look at alcoholism. Such a big factor in the United States especially, and all around the world we can say. Such a common thing now too. Many people do it, and they just think it's just like drinking water. Alcohol is such a habit to such that it's an everyday thing. And due to that, people suffer. Maybe some sooner than the others. But people do suffer, and yet they still make the mistake of consuming such drinks. Now, alcohol affects the brain and its functions. Obviously, Bhagwan knew this in his time, around 230 years ago when he came. He knew that this was the cause of effects. He knew that in the future, it would also get worse. Society would also consume more and more. Due to that, he made a bystander, or a law or a moral code, to be specific, on this particular topic. Now, he knew that what it did to the mind, one cannot have control of one's mind. The main principle of spiritualism is to purify oneself, one's soul, and then join with God. But in order for that process to happen, one first needs to be physically pure and then after mentally pure, and then one's soul becomes pure. It's a procedure. But if from the starting our physical body is not pure and we start drinking alcohol, which really messes with our mind, our brain functions, then we can obviously never become mentally pure. And we will never be able to reach the step of becoming pure from the soul perspective. So it disables our thinking, power, reasoning, decision-making, and stability and focus. That's why one should never consume alcohol. And that's why Bhagwan has strictly told his devotees not to do any of these acts. Alcohol it's addictive, and higher consumption of alcohol will make one dependent on it. And when in difficult times, if some people get too addictive and they don't receive it, then some people become weak, sick, or might even die from it. So such kind of dependency on this addictive, you can say, substance or drink, it will hurt one in the future, but also at any time, at any period. Now, why do people drink alcohol? That's a big reason. There's always some reason. What is it? Well, first and foremost, as teens or as young adults, people like to show off in front of their friends, or like to look good, or like to join with the crowd. Due to that, people drink with their friends, peer pressure, you can say as well. Also, another reason why is to relieve pain, physical pain. So if someone is physically pained, they drink alcohol, and for that some time, the nervous system is kind of, you can say, disabled. So the pain is gone for just temporary time. Due to that, people drink. And third, and the most biggest, you can say, reason people drink is to relieve mental agony. Due to, you can say, economic situations, due to social problems, due to all kinds of problems in the world, all kinds of miseries in the world, people drink alcohol to relieve their mental pain, to make their mental pain flourish or go away. And from that, they think that this is a solution. But they don't know that it's only temporary, and then they'll be back to normal. Their life will be back to normal, how it was. So this is a foolish way. There are many other ways that one can divert one's mental agony, one's physical pain. I mean, to relieve physical pain, you can go to a doctor, or you can take some kind of medicine. Alcohol is no kind of substance or no kind of, you can say, substitute to relieve pain. So some of the reasons are just ridiculous, you can say, for drinking alcohol. But you can say, and we can see, that most of the world does this. And due to that, they suffer. Consumption of alcohol can stimulate the nervous system temporarily. Therefore, physical pain, as I mentioned, mental agony, depression, stress, tension, are all forgotten for a short period of time. Meaning, there's always going to be ups and downs in one's life. That's life. That's this world. But there's always better ways to deal with it. By drinking alcohol and making oneself forget. That's one of the worst ways. One can actually do devotion or read some kind of spiritual manuscript or scriptures, or even there's so many other ways to relieve depression, stress, tension. Just take a vacation. That can relieve stress too. But we humans find the worst ways to relieve our depression, stress, and tension. And due to that, we suffer. And all there is suffering. And then at the end, we complain that my life was miserable. But it was us who made it miserable. That's why one should never do such kinds of things. And that's why Bhagwan has restrained his devotees from drinking alcohol or any kinds of alcohol offered to a deity, according to the Shikshapatri. I mean, also another side factor is consumption of alcohol weakens the nerves of a person. Efficiency of the brain, liver, heart, organs are also affected, and numerous physical and mental complications arise. This we learn in school, or we know that there's many problems, and there's many problems organ-wise and mental-wise that happens to people who consume. Yet, it still continues. It's said that an addict does not consume alcohol, but alcohol consumes the addict. So there's some interesting facts I have to tell you, because people don't learn the easy way by just listening and then doing practically. It's when one gets hit hard, one really realizes that I've made a mistake. But sometimes it's just too late. But for teens and those who go to high school and college, alcoholism is one of the biggest factors in those particular times, because of the good times, you can say, partying and other kinds of people just want to have a good time. But alcohol-related accidents are the number one killer for teens. And also, alcohol poisoning occurs when you drink too much alcohol too fast, which can lead to a coma or even death. Now, I strongly recommend those who are in high school and who are entering college that mostly maybe 70 to 80% of the way to have a good time is to consume alcohol and do drugs. But this is not the right way, because all those who do it suffer sooner or later. So that's why, for the benefit of all his devotees, Shree Maharaj has implemented this moral code, and that's why we should follow as devotees, as true devotees, we can say. Moving on to the fourth moral code is adultery. Now let's define adultery. One should abstain and renounce unethical sexual relationships through mind, action, and speech. Meaning, that's the meaning what Shree Maharaj is trying to get at, where one should renounce unethical sexual relationships through mind, action, and speech. People just think it's just action, but also mentally, by thinking or even talking about it, one is breaking this code of adultery that Bhagwan has forbidden. And in the Shikshapatri, verse number 18, Bhagwan has mentioned that none of my followers shall indulge in adultery. Now, talking, thinking, or even seeing other women, vice versa men, in an impure manner is considered to be adultery. This too is a factor in the world. Just like alcoholism, also adultery goes side by side, because the human only sees a couple ways to really attain happiness in this world. He does not see the way of the path of God or the great saint. Due to this, he ignores all those factors and he suffers. But let's talk more in depth about this factor. One should never associate with the wrong intentions in any manner with the opposite sex. This is what Bhagwan is trying to say. If you're married, then one should only be devoted to one's wife and no one else. And if you're a single person, that until marriage, one should never even, you can say it's very hard, but one should stay away from these kinds of actions, speech, or mind until marriage. This is the way one should follow the moral code of adultery that Bhagwan has mentioned. And why? Because many suffer because diseases occur from this factor, and due to that, people's lives are ruined. But Shree Maharaj has been looking out for his devotees from the past, and due to that, he has made and implemented this rule. We can even say that animals have the same kind of natures as humans, such as hunger, sleep, fear, and lastly, to procreate. But humans have a plus one, you can say. Humans have intelligence. Bhagwan has given humans intelligence where they can discriminate between right and wrong. Yet, in society, even if we have intelligence, we ignore it, and we do the wrong thing and break this code. Then my question to all of you is that, is there any difference between humans and animals? Just think, animals are not given such kind of intelligence, yet they only abide to their own species. They only abide to their own, you can say, nature or whatever. If they only eat grass, they only eat grass. You won't see a herbivore animal eating meat. But the human, we can say it has too much intelligence, whereas it breaks the factors where it cannot even discriminate. And the most valuable or precious thing to us is this human body. Through this body, we can attain Bhagwan. We can attain God. But used in the wrong manner, used in the wrong, you can say, sense, only destroys one's, you can say, morals and merit. Now, adultery is an immoral act in which many bad things occur. We already reviewed this. But one may be thinking that I obviously want to restrain from this, but lust is such a factor that is in my mind that is bothering me. What can I do to avoid such kind of, you can say, thoughts? Well, there's many ways mentioned in the Vachnamrit. Shree Maharaj says penance is a way, eating little, engaging in devotion, controlling one's senses and mind. These are all ways to control one's lustful, you can say, nature and avoid this factor so one can follow the moral code. And lastly, finally, insecure food. Now, this moral code is a little bit different. It's more meant on the side of the Hindu caste system. I'm going to explain to you what it exactly means, but it abides and pertains to everyone. Even if one isn't in the Hindu caste system, it still pertains to everyone. And I'll give you the reason why. So first and foremost, insecure food, what does it mean? One should consume food from proper sources and refrain from insecure sources, food sources. So pretty much in the Hindu society, there's a caste system. There's 4 levels: the Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Now the Brahman is the holy man. He's the highest class. He's the highest rank. Second is a Kshatriya, which is the soldier or the warriors. Third is a Vaishya, which is the businessmen or farmers. And fourth is the immoral person, or a person who is very poor and does immoral acts. This is the Hindu caste system. Now, what Bhagwan is trying to say is that the Brahmins are the highest of the caste, and the Shudras are the lowest of the caste. Now, suppose that a Shudra makes food, and it cannot be offered to a Brahmin, and the Brahmin cannot consume it. Why? Because Brahmins have specific qualities. Brahmins have qualities that are very moral and very, you can say, pious. And by eating from the hands of a person who has the lowest qualities, one's mind becomes impure. Due to that, one kind of falls from one's spiritual level. And this is the reason why Shree Maharaj says that to maintain one's spiritual level, to maintain one's level of devotion, one should only eat food from one's own caste or higher. Another example, if one is a Vaishya, then one can eat from the hands of a Kshatriya and a Brahman because they're higher in rank. But one cannot eat from the hands of a Shudra. Meaning, it all depends. Why? Because if one is impure and one makes food and one offers it to another person who is pure, then he loses those qualities automatically. And however one's mind is, or however what kind of food one eats, that's how one's mind becomes. This is the reason why Bhagwan has made this rule. And we can say, how does it pertain to here in the United States or in other countries besides India? Well, there's a big factor where many people eat outside food. And people think that, I don't have time to make food, so I'll eat outside food and it'll be okay. Everything would be okay. But the only problem with that is the people who are preparing or making food may be impure, maybe have the wrong intentions in their mind. They might not be religious, but may have many vices like ego, anger, jealousy, such kind of vices. Even by preparing food for you, suppose they've just prepared the food for you and even offering it to you. Suppose you're a very high spiritualized devotee. By eating such kind of food offered by such a low person, one's mind becomes affected greatly. And one may think, how so? Well, I can't give you some kind of example through oral, but if only one experiences, one can know that if one is really spiritualized, one can meditate upon God, one can devote one's time to God and remember God. And then if one goes outside and eats from the hands of someone who is very immoral, see what happens to one's mind. It becomes so corrupted, it becomes so demolished, you can say degraded, that it takes so much time again to go back up to that spiritual level. So even one time eating from the hands of a person who is impure is a very big loss, you can say, and it's a great danger. So that's why Bhagwan has made this fifth code of conduct, saying that one should not eat from the hands of a person who is impure or insecure food, as he calls it, translated in English. So these are the 5 moral codes for devotees, or householders, you can say. We can say on one side that it's very hard to follow because I'm surrounded by all these kinds of things. But according to the Vachnamrut, a true devotee who wants to please Bhagwan and the saints, what can he not do for them? According to Loya 3rd chapter, Bhagwan says, what can he not do? Meaning, if he can renounce his family life, if he can renounce his kingdom, all these examples are given, then what is it for these 5 things? Alcoholism, adultery, is nothing for him. There is no kind of comparison. So, keeping this in mind, to become a true devotee of God, to please Bhagwan, one should follow these 5 moral codes with heart. And through this, one attains the blessings of Bhagwan and one attains Akshardham. A householder and a saintly person, many people see that there's a great difference, that I have to follow whatever the saint does, just like whatever he does in order to attain Akshardham. But that's not true. If one stays in one's own code of conducts, according to Shree Maharaj, and one abides it throughout his life, maintaining purity and performing devotion, then one can easily attain Akshardham. It's not hard. But the hard part is just maintaining. That's what one has to do. And through listening to Katha, through reading scriptures, through associating with saints, one can follow one's life in such an easy manner that even where if we have not attained God, you can say we can still physically feel His presence everywhere. Saying this, my humble Jai Swaminarayan. Shree Patim Shree Dharam Sarvadeveshwaram Bhaktidharmatmajam Vasudevam Hare Madhavam Kesavam Kamadam Karanam Sri Swaminarayanam Neelakantham Bhaje Hari